Emma Hartley stood at the altar of St. Mary's Church in the quaint village of Willowbrook, Surrey, her heart pounding like a drum in a silent orchestra. The lace veil cascaded over her blonde curls, and her ivory gown hugged her figure with the elegance she'd dreamed of since girlhood. The air was thick with the scent of fresh lilies and polished oak pews, and the murmur of 200 guests, family, friends, and distant cousins, hovered like a storm cloud. It was supposed to be the perfect English wedding. A crisp autumn day in October, with golden leaves swirling outside the stained glass windows. But as the organist played the bridal march for what felt like the 10th time, Emma's groom, James, was nowhere to be seen. She clutched a bouquet of white roses so tightly that thorns pricked her palms, drawing tiny beads of blood. Her maid of honor, Sophie, fidgeted beside her, whispering frantic updates from the vicar. He's probably stuck in traffic on the M25. You know how Londoners are with country roads. But Emma knew better. James had been distant for weeks. Late nights at the office, vague excuses about work trips to Manchester. Last night, over a tense rehearsal dinner at the local pub, he'd avoided her gaze, nursing his pint like it held all the answers. The clock on the wall ticked mercilessly. 10 minutes late turned to 20, then 40. Whispers rippled through the congregation. Poor dear, what a cad. Is this really happening? Emma's father, a retired banker with stiff upper lip, paced the aisle, his face flushed with barely contained fury. Her mother dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, murmuring prayers under her breath. Emma felt the weight of their expectations crushing her. The village gossip that would follow, the pitying looks at the supermarket, the endless questions about what went wrong. Finally, the vicar cleared his throat. My dear, perhaps we should. The church doors burst open with a dramatic creak, and a disheveled usher stumbled in, phone in hand. It's James, he announced, voice echoing off the stone walls. He's not coming. He sent a text. Says he's sorry, but he can't go through with it. Something about not being ready. A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. Emma's world tilted. Her knees buckled, and she gripped the altar rail to stay upright. Left at the altar, the phrase she'd read in tabloids now carved into her reality. Tears blurred her vision, hot and unbidden. Sophie rushed to her side, but Emma waved her off, needing space to breathe through the humiliation. Amid the chaos, a man in the front row stood up. He was tall, with tousled auburn hair and a neatly trimmed beard, dressed in a navy suit that screamed Seville Road tailoring. Dr. Alexander Thorne, Alex, as he'd introduced himself at the rehearsal. He was James's colleague from a hospital in London, a renowned cardiologist who'd made his fortune patenting some revolutionary heart valve device. Millionaire doctor. The papers called him, though he downplayed it with that charming, self-deprecating humor. They chatted briefly last night. He complimented her on her laugh, saying it lit up the dreary pub like sunlight through fog. Now, as the guests buzzed like angry bees, Alex approached the altar with purposeful strides. His green eyes locked onto hers, steady and intense. He leaned in close, his hand gently touching her elbow, sending an unexpected spark through her numbness. In a low whisper, meant only for her, he said, Emma, pretend to marry me now. We can sort the details later. Don't let this day end in ruins. She stared at him, dumbfounded. Was he mad? A stranger? Well, almost, often a stepping like some fairy tale night. But in his gaze, she saw no pity, only a quiet resolve, perhaps tinged with his own hidden scars. The vicar hovered nearby, eyebrows raised. The guests leaned forward, sensing a twist in the drama. Why? She whispered back, her voice cracking. Because no one deserves this, he replied softly. And because, from what I saw last night, you're worth far more than that coward ever knew. Emma's mind raced. The alternative was slinking away in defeat, facing the wreckage alone. Or this wild, improbable escape. With a deep breath, she nodded, her heart thundering anew. All right, she murmured. Let's do it. As the vicar resumed his position, a hush fell over the church. Alex took James's place, slipping a simple gold band from his pocket onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if fate had conspired. The ceremony blurred into vows exchanged in a daze, sealed with a kiss that was meant to be perfunctory but lingered just a moment too long, warm and surprisingly real. Little did Emma know, this impulsive act would unravel secrets from Alex's past, a hidden divorce, a family fortune fraught with betrayal, and draw her into a whirlwind of emotions she never anticipated. But for now, as they walked down the aisle to stunned applause, she felt a flicker of hope amid the chaos. The reception awaited, and with it, the first cracks in their pretend union. The village hall in Willowbrook had been transformed into a fairy tale setting. Fairy lights strung across the beamed ceiling, long tables draped in crisp white linen, and centerpieces of seasonal berries and ivy. The string quartet had switched to upbeat covers of classic British tunes, and champagne flowed freely as if to drown out the morning scandal. Emma and Alex stepped through the doors as Mr. and Mrs. Thorne to a thunderous round of applause that felt half-hearted, half-bewildered. Emma's cheeks ached from the forced smile she'd worn since the kiss at the altar. Alex's hand rested lightly at the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd with the calm assurance of a man used to commanding operating theaters. Whispers followed them like smoke. "Did you see that? He just stepped in like a knight. But who is he, really?" Poor James must be devastated or relieved. They made their way to the top table, where Emma's parents sat rigid with shock. Her father, Reginald, rose stiffly, extending a hand to Alex. "Dr. Thorne, that was unexpected. Brave, perhaps, but we need to talk." Alex shook it firmly. "Of course, sir. Later, in private. Tonight is still Emma's day." Her mother, Patricia, clutched a gin and tonic like a lifeline, eyes darting between them. "Darling, are you quite all right? We can annul this tomorrow if—" "I'm fine, Mum," Emma cut in, voice steady than she felt. "Let's not ruin a party for everyone else." Sophie, ever the loyal friend, appeared with 2 flutes of champagne and a conspiratorial grin. "You absolute legend," she hissed in Emma's ear. "The village WhatsApp groups are exploding. Half the mums thinks romantic. The other half think you both gone mad." The meal passed in a blur of toasts and awkward speeches. The best man, James's cousin, mumbled through a shortened version, face crimson. When it came to the groom's speech, Alex stood without hesitation. He cleared his throat, the room falling silent. "I know this isn't the speech any of you expected today," he began, his voice warm and resonant. "I certainly didn't plan to give one. But life, like medicine, rarely follows a textbook." A ripple of laughter eased the tension. Emma Hartley, now Thorne, is one of the kindest, most resilient people I've ever met. Today she was dealt an unforgivable blow, yet she chose grace over despair. I'm honored she allowed me to stand beside her. So here's to Emma. May the rest of her days be filled with the love and loyalty she deserves. Glasses clinked, and Emma felt tears prick her eyes again. This time not from heartbreak. Alex sat, squeezing her hand under the table. His palm was warm, steady. She realized she was still wearing the simple gold band he'd produced from nowhere. After the plates were cleared, the dancing began. Emma's elderly uncles twirled ants to Glenn Miller, while younger guests spilled on the floor as the DJ switched to modern hits. Alex led her to the center for the first dance, a slow Ed Sheeran ballad that felt absurdly intimate for 2 near strangers. "You're shaking," he murmured against her ear. "I'm terrified," she admitted. Everyone's staring. "Let them. You're the most beautiful woman in the room. And tonight you're safe." She pulled back slightly to look at him. Up close, his green eyes held flecks of gold, and there was a faint scar along his jaw she hadn't noticed before. "Why did you do this, Alex?" "Really?" He hesitated. "Partly impulse. Partly, I know what it's like to be publicly humiliated. My ex-wife left me very suddenly, very messily, 3 years ago. Front page of the tabloids. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone, especially not someone who deserves joy." Emma's heart softened. "I'm sorry. Don't be. Tonight isn't about my past." He spun her gently. "It's about giving you a memory that isn't tainted." As the song ended, Sophie dragged Emma away for photographs, leaving Alex cornered by her father and a cluster of curious guests. Emma watched from across the room as he handled their questions with charm and deflection. Later, Under the pergola outside, where fairy lights twinkled against the frosty night air, they finally stole a moment alone. Emma wrapped her arms around herself against the chill. "We should talk logistics," she said quietly. "Annulment papers on Monday, quiet divorce in 6 months." Alex leaned against the wooden rail, studying her. "If that's what you want, yes." But he paused, choosing his words. "I meant what I said in the church. We can sort the details later. There's no rush. You've been through enough today." She laughed softly, a sound tinged with disbelief. "You've just married a woman you barely know." "I know enough," he replied. "You teach year 3 at the primary school. You love dog but are allergic to cats. You make the best Victoria sponge in Surrey. Your mum told me. And you have a laugh that makes a dreary pub feel like summer." Emma felt warmth spread through her chest. "You were listening." "Always." He offered his arm. "Come on, Mrs. Thorne. One more dance before we face the Inquisition." As they walked back inside, hand in hand, Emma realized the ache in her heart had shifted, just slightly, from devastation to something tentative and unfamiliar. Hope, perhaps, or the beginning of something neither of them had planned. But across the room, her phone buzzed on the table with a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. It's not what you think. James." The night was far from over. Emma stared at the glowing screen in the dim light of the bridal suite at the Willowbrook Manor, a boutique hotel just outside the village where the wedding party had booked rooms for the night. The message from the unknown number, James's new one. She assumed, sat unread for a full minute before she tapped it open. "We need to talk. It's not what you think. I couldn't go through with it, because I'm in trouble. Serious trouble. Please, meet me tomorrow. The old boathouse by the river, noon. Come alone. Jay." Her stomach twisted. Trouble? After everything. He had the nerve to play the victim? She almost had the phone across the room, but the door opened softly and Alex stepped in, loosening his tie, 2 cups of tea in hand. "Thought you might need this," he said, nodding at the chamomile steaming in the fine china. "Your mum swears by it for shock." Emma managed a weak smile and tucked the phone face down on the dressing table. "Thank you. For the tea. For everything tonight." He set the cups down and perched on the edge of the armchair, giving her space on the 4-poster bed still scattered with her going-away outfit. "You don't have to thank me. How are you holding up?" "Like I've been hit by a double-decker bus," she admitted, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. "Everyone was lovely, but I could feel them watching, waiting for me to fall apart." "You didn't," he said simply. "You were extraordinary." Silence settled, comfortable yet charged. Moonlight filtered through the leaded windows, casting silver patterns on the carpet. Finally, Emma spoke. "Alex, where did the ring come from?" He glanced at his own bare left hand, then hers. "It was my grandmother's. Plain gold band. She wore it for 60 years. I carry it sometimes. Stupid habit, I suppose. A reminder that some marriages do last." "It fits perfectly," Emma said softly. "Luck," he replied, but his eyes held hers a beat too long. They talked until the tea went cold, about her job teaching 8-year-olds, his long shifts at St. Thomas Hospital, favorite walks in the Surrey Hills. He told her about growing up in Yorkshire, losing his parents young, pouring everything into medicine. She confessed her fear that James's jilting confirmed she wasn't enough. Alex listened without interrupting, the way few people ever had. Eventually, exhaustion won. "There's a second bedroom through there," he said, gesturing to the connecting door. "I'll take the sofa if you'd rather be alone." "No," she said quickly. "Stay. Just on your side." She laughed nervously. "We're married after all. Pretend married." He smiled, dimples showing for the first time. "Pretend married. I like that." They changed in separate rooms, emerging in hotel dressing gowns. The bed felt enormous and intimate at once. They lay on top of the covers, a careful foot of space between them, staring at the canopy. "Alex," she whispered into the dark. I'm glad it was you who stepped up today." He turned his head on the pillow. "Me too, Emma Thorne." Sleep came surprisingly fast. Morning light woke her to birdsong and the smell of bacon drifting up from the kitchen. Alex was already dressed in chinos and a navy jumper, reading the paper by the window. "Breakfast in 20 minutes, he said. "Your parents are downstairs with Sophie. They've summoned us for a family conference." Emma groaned. "Can we elope instead?" "Tempting." He folded the paper. "But we'll face them together." Downstairs in the private dining room, the atmosphere was tense. Her father stood as they entered, arms crossed. Patricia looked as though she hadn't slept. Sophie offered a supportive grimace from behind a stack of toast. Reginald wasted no time. "This has gone far enough. We've spoken to the vicar. An annulment can be arranged quietly. Non-consummation entered under duress. No scandal." Emma felt Alex stiffen beside her. "Dad, I appreciate the concern, but nothing," her father cut in. "Dr. Thorne, you seem a decent man, but you took advantage of a vulnerable moment." Alex's voice was calm steel. "With respect, sir, I offered Emma choice when she had none left. She accepted. I stand by that." Patricia reached for Emma's hand. "Darling, James rang this morning. He's desperate to explain." Emma's phone buzzed again in her pocket. Another message from James, no doubt. Anger flared. He had his chance. He chose to humiliate me in front of everyone we know. Sophie spoke up. "Actually, there's village gossip flying. Apparently James was seen leaving a casino in London last night. Word is he's in deep with some very nasty people. Gambling debts." Emma's blood ran cold. That explained the trouble. Alex glanced at her, reading her expression. "Do you want to hear him out?" She thought of the boathouse meeting. Alone, as he'd asked. After everything, did she owe him that? "No," she said finally. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." Her father exhaled, softening slightly. "Then what now?" Emma looked at Alex. They hadn't discussed beyond surviving the night. "Now," Alex said quietly, "we give ourselves time. A few weeks, perhaps. Emma can stay at my flat in London if she wants distance from the village chatter. Or I'll disappear and let her breathe, whatever she needs." Emma felt a rush of gratitude. No pressure. No possession. Just space. "I think," she began, "I'd like to take that time with you, if the offer's still open." His slow smile was answer enough. As they left the dining room hand in hand, Emma's phone buzzed once more. She pulled it out, ready to block James's number. But the message wasn't from him. It was from an unknown contact. A single photograph of her and Alex kissing at the altar, taken from the pews. Below it, the words, "Congratulations, Mrs. Thorne. Enjoy your honeymoon. Someone will be in touch soon about payment. A friend of James." Emma stopped dead in the hallway, the blood draining from her face. Whatever trouble James was in, it seemed it now belonged to both of them. Emma handed the phone to Alex without a word. He read the message twice, his jaw tightening as he zoomed in on the photograph. Grainy, but unmistakably them at the altar, lips meeting in that fleeting, staged kiss. "Blackmail," he said quietly, handing it back. "Classic leverage. They'll threaten to sell the story to the papers unless we pay." Emma sank onto the velvet chaise in the hotel hallway, her bridal hangover replaced by a cold dread. How much do you think they'll ask for? Enough to hurt, not enough to ruin. James probably owes tens of thousands. Maybe six figures if he's been stupid long enough. They'll want a quick payout to clear part of it. She rubbed her temples. "I can't believe I almost felt sorry for him." Alex crouched in front of her, taking both her hands. "Listen to me. This is not your mess. It's his. And now, because of yesterday, they think it's mine too." He paused. "But I can handle it." "What does that mean?" "It means I have resources. Lawyers, security contacts from when the tabloids hounded me after my divorce. We don't pay blackmailers, Emma. We shut them down." She searched his face. "You've done this before?" "Not exactly. But I've dealt with people who thought money made them untouchable." He stood, offering his hand. "First step, we go to the police. Quietly. There's a decent chap I know at the Met. Specializes in extortion cases tied to gambling rings." Emma hesitated. If we involve the police, it becomes public. The village, my school, the children's parents. Not necessarily. We start with a civil report, no press involvement, and we get ahead of it. By midday, they were in Alex's sleek black Range Rover heading toward London. Emma had changed into jeans and one of his borrowed cashmere jumpers that smelled faintly of cedar and hospital soap. Willowbrook's thatched cottages and frost-laced fields gave way to motorways, and then the familiar sprawl of the capital. Alex's flat was in a converted warehouse in Bermondsey. High ceilings, exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Thames. It felt like a sanctuary. Minimalist furniture, bookshelves crammed with medical journals and dog-eared classics. A grand piano no one played. He made coffee while she paced. "I should ring James," she said finally. "Find out exactly what he's dragged us into." Alex handed her a mug. "On speaker. And don't agree to meet him." She dialed the new number. It rang 4 times before James answered, voice hoarse. "Em? Thank God. Are you all right?" "No, James, I'm not all right. I was left at the altar, remember? And now I'm getting threatening messages because of your debts." Silence crackled down the line. "I didn't want this," he said eventually. "I tried to fix it. Borrowed from the wrong people to cover earlier losses. Thought I could win it back before the wedding. I couldn't." "How much?" A long breath. 85,000. They gave me until yesterday to pay the first installment. When I couldn't, they said they'd make my life hell. Then they saw the wedding photos online. Someone live-streamed it on the village Facebook group. They realized now, Dr. Thorne might be worth more. Emma closed her eyes. "So you ran to protect yourself and left me to face them." I panicked. I thought if the wedding was off, they'd focus on me alone. I didn't know he'd marry you. Alex leant forward. "James, this is Alex Thorne. You have 2 choices. You come clean to the police and help us identify these people, or we go to them without you and let the chips fall." James's voice rose. "They'll kill me." "Then you should have thought of that before borrowing from loan sharks." Alex said coolly. "You've got 24 hours to decide. After that, we act." He ended the call. Emma stared at the river below, barges sliding past in the gray light. "Do you think he'll cooperate?" "I think he's terrified enough to try." That afternoon, Alex's lawyer, a brisk woman named Clara, who arrived with a non-disclosure agreement and a plan. Statements were drafted. A detective sergeant from the Met's Economic Crime Unit agreed to meet them discreetly the next morning. As evening fell, Alex cooked pasta in the open-plan kitchen, moving with the same precision he probably used in surgery. Emma sat at the island, glass of red in hand, watching him. "You don't have to do all this," she said. "You could walk away. Annulment, no questions." He stirred the sauce, not looking up. "I'm not walking away." "Why?" He set the spoon down and met her eyes. "Because yesterday, when you said yes in that church, something shifted. I didn't expect it, but I felt responsible, protective, and then, talking to you last night, laughing with you this morning, I realized I don't want this to be pretend anymore. Not entirely." Emma's heart stuttered. "Alex, I'm not asking for anything," he added quickly. "Not yet. Just, let's get through this mess first. Then we decide what we want this marriage to be, if anything." She nodded slowly, warmth spreading despite the fear. "Together, then." "Together?" Later, curled on the sofa watching the city lights, another message arrived. This time to Alex's phone. A different number. A single line. 100,000 pounds by Friday, or the pretty teacher's reputation goes national. Lovely kiss, by the way. Alex showed her, then forwarded it straight to Clara and the detective. Emma rested her head on his shoulder. "They're getting bolder." "They're getting desperate," he corrected. "That's when people make mistakes." As the Thames glittered below them, Emma realized she no longer felt like the jilted bride. She felt like someone standing on the edge of something real, dangerous, yes, but also full of possibility. And for the first time since the church doors failed to open for James, she wasn't afraid. Friday morning arrived with a hard frost glazing the Thames. Emma stood at Alex's kitchen island slicing tomatoes for breakfast while he reviewed emails from Clara. The deadline loomed. 100,000 pounds by midnight, or the photographs, now including several candid shots from the reception, would be splashed across the tabloids with headlines screaming jilted bride sham millionaire marriage. James had finally surfaced the previous evening, pale and trembling, at a quiet cafe in Clapham. Flanked by the detective sergeant in plain clothes, he'd handed over names, phone numbers, and the address of a nondescript office above a bookmaker's in Croydon. The plan was simple. The police wanted to catch the extortionists in the act. Alex and Emma would arrange a drop, mark notes in a holdall, GPS tracker inside, while officers waited nearby. "You still don't have it come," Alex said for the third time, pouring coffee. "I can do the handoff alone." Emma shook her head. "They asked for both of us in the last message. If I don't show, they might bolt." She managed a wry smile. "Besides, I'm done hiding." He studied her a moment, pride flickering in his eyes. "All right, but you stay in the car until the signal. Promise me." "Promise." By late afternoon, they were in an unmarked van parked opposite the Croydon office. Rain streaked the windscreen in sheets. Detective Sergeant Patel briefed them one last time. 2 men inside, Lenny Carver and his enforcer Mick Doyle, plus a possible third on lookout. The money was in the boot. Emma's pulse thrummed in her ears. At 1947, Alex's phone buzzed. "Bring the bag to flat 3B. Both of you. No police or the pictures go live in 10 minutes. Alex showed Patel, who nodded. "We're ready. Go." They climbed the narrow staircase, Alex carrying the holdall, Emma close behind. The door to 3B opened before they knocked. Lenny Carver was smaller than she'd imagined, slick hair, cheap suit, gold pinky ring. But his eyes were cold. Mick stood behind him, built like a rugby prop, arms folded. "Mrs. Thorne," Carver drawled, smirking at Emma. "Didn't think you'd show after your little drama. Come in." The flat stank of cigarette smoke and damp. A laptop sat open on a cluttered table, their wedding kiss frozen on the screen. Alex set the bag down. "Money's all there. Count it if you like." Carver unzipped it, rifled through the bundles, then nodded at Mick. "Check them outside." As Mick stepped past, Emma noticed a faint red, a laser sight dance across his chest for a split second. Patel's team moving into position. Carver turned back. Smile gone. "You know, your ex was a proper idiot. Thought a big wedding would scare us off. Then you go and marry money." He jerked his chin at Alex. "Lucky for us." Alex's voice was ice. "You've got what you came for. We're done." "Not quite." Carver pulled a phone from his pocket. "Insurance. One button, and those photos hit every editor's inbox. So you're going to add another 50. Monthly. Or the teacher here finds out how fast a reputation burns." Emma felt rage override fear. "You'll get nothing more. The police are already outside." Carver laughed, until the door exploded inward. Armed officers poured in, shouting "police." Down on the floor. Chaos erupted. Mick lunged. Alex shoved Emma behind him. Carver scrambled for the laptop, but Patel tackled him. Within seconds, both men were cuffed, swearing furiously. Emma's legs gave way. Alex caught her, holding tight as the adrenaline crashed through them. Outside in the rain, Patel approached, raincoat dripping. "Clean arrest. Tracker worked perfectly. We'll seize the laptops, phones. Should be enough to tie them to half a dozen other cases." He glanced at Emma. "You were brilliant, both of you." Back at the Bermondsey flat hours later, showered and wrapped in blankets, they sat on the sofa with takeaway curry and a bottle of wine that tasted like victory. Emma raised her glass. To not being blackmailed anymore. Alex clinked his against hers. And to surviving our first week of marriage. She laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in months. "Think we'll make it to a second?" He set his glass down, turning serious. "Emma, when this started it was pretend. A mad, kind impulse. But somewhere between the church and Croydon, it stopped being pretend for me." Her breath caught. "For me too," she whispered. "I don't know when exactly. Maybe when you made me tea after the worst day of my life. Or when you refuse to let me face this alone." He reached for her hand, thumb tracing the gold band that hadn't left her finger. "Then let's stop calling it pretend. Stay. Not because you have to, but because you want to. We'll date properly. Dinners, walks, arguments about whose turn it is to load the dishwasher. A real marriage, built on something stronger than vows rushed in panic." Tears pricked her eyes, happy ones this time. "Yes," she said. 1,000 times yes. He leaned in, kissing her slowly, deliberately, no audience, no pretense. When they pulled apart, foreheads resting together, he murmured, "Mrs. Thorne, I think we're going to be all right." Outside, London's lights shimmer on the river, and for the first time in a long while, Emma believed in beginnings again. But in the quiet, one question lingered. James had vanished after giving a statement. No one had seen him since the arrests. And somewhere in the city, a final loose thread waited to be tied. 6 months later, June 2026. The Surrey countryside was in full bloom as Emma walked down the garden path of Alex's family home in the Yorkshire Dales, a restored stone farmhouse they now called their own on weekends. She wore a simple tea-length dress in soft ivory, wildflowers woven into her loose blonde waves. No veil this time. No frantic whispers or stunned guests. Just 30 of their closest family and friends gathered on the terrace overlooking rolling hills. Alex waited beneath an arch of roses, in a light gray morning suit, his auburn hair catching the sunlight. When he saw her, his smile was slow and unguarded. The one she'd come to know in quiet mornings over coffee, in late-night discussions about schools and surgeries, in the way he'd held her when the nightmares of that October day still crept in. This time the vows were deliberate, spoken clearly and without a trace of pretense. "I, Alexander James Thorne, take you, Emma Rose Hartley, to be my lawful wife, not to rescue you, but to walk beside you, to choose you every day, in calm and in storm, for all the days I'm lucky enough to have." Emma's voice didn't waver. "I, Emma Rose Thorne, take you, Alexander, to be my husband, not because fate forced us together, but because I want no one else. To laugh with you, challenge you, build a life that's truly ours." They exchanged new rings, platinum bands engraved inside with the date of their first wedding, October 12th, 2025. A quiet nod to the chaotic beginning that had somehow led them here. Sophie, maid of honor again, dabbed at her eyes. Emma's parents sat in the front row, her father's arm around her mother, both beaming with the relief of seeing their daughter genuinely happy. Even James had sent a brief note weeks earlier, postmarked from Manchester, where he'd entered a rehabilitation program after the trial. No apology could erase the damage, but he'd written, "I'm glad you found someone who deserves you." Emma had read it once, then tucked it away. After the ceremony, the celebration spilled across the lawn. Long tables under a marquee, Pimm's and elderflower cordial, a hog roast followed by Emma's own Victoria sponge. 3 tiers this time, baked with Alex's surprisingly competent help. Children from her school ran about with bubbles. Alex's colleagues from the hospital toasted with stories of his softer side they'd only recently discovered. As dusk settled and fairy lights twinkled on, Alex pulled Emma aside to the old stone bench beneath a yew tree. "1 year ago," he said, lacing his fingers through hers, "I barely knew you. Now I can't imagine mornings without your terrible singing in the shower." She laughed, leaning into him. "Or evenings without your obsessive need to alphabetize the spice rack." He kissed her temple. "Happy first anniversary of the day I stole you from the altar. Happy day you gave me a better story," she replied. Later, when the guests had gone and the house was quiet, they stood on the terrace watching the stars emerge. Somewhere in the distance, a fox called. Emma rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't stood up that day?" she asked softly. "Every day," he admitted. "And every day I'm grateful I did, because the life I have now with you is the one I didn't know I was missing." She turned to face him, the gold band glinting on her finger. "We turned a disaster into this. I think that makes us rather good at marriages." He smiled, pulling her close. "Then let's keep practicing." Under the vast Yorkshire sky, they kissed. Not for show, not out of impulse, but because they had chosen each other fully and freely. The jilted bride and the millionaire doctor who'd whispered a mad proposal had become something far more enduring. Partners, lovers, home. And as the night wrapped around them, Emma knew, without doubt, that some of the best love stories begin with the worst possible day. Their story wasn't pretend anymore. It never would be again.